10 years from today, Lisa Schneider will trade in her office job to become the leader of a pack of dogs. As the owner of her own dog rescue, that is. A second act made possible by the reskilling courses Lisa's taking now with AARP to help make sure her income lives as long as she does. And she can finally run with the big dogs. And the small dogs, who just think they're big dogs. That's why the younger you are, the more you need AARP. Learn more at aarp.org/skills.
Chronic spontaneous urticaria, or chronic hives with no known cause. It's so unpredictable. It's like playing pinball. Itchy, red bumps start on my arm, then my back. Sometimes my legs. Hives come out of nowhere. And it comes and goes. But I just found out about a treatment option at treatmyhives.com. Take that, chronic hives. Learn more at treatmyhives.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and yes, it's Saturday morning. Don't even think it's 8 o'clock in the morning yet. Hair's all over the place on Chris's end. My beard's all over on my end. We wake up, Sunderland have apparently signed a big player, so we've rolled out of bed because you lot have demanded it to chat all about what looks to be Sunderland's record signing. Habib Diarra. This news was broke by Fabrizio Romano overnight. We're going to get straight into it. Chris is with us, as I said. Hello, mate.
Yes, I'm here in body, I think, but we've kind of jumped up, and I don't want to know what's going on your end, if I'm completely honest.
Mate, I'm just enthused to talk about Sunderland once more on this fine Saturday morning. Now, to be honest, I know Sunderland often do things to completely throw us and surprise us, but completely smashing our transfer record for a player that we weren't really linked with up until about midday yesterday is right up there, like, isn't it? I mean, I've got a feeling this is going to become a bit of a theme of the summer, that we are going to be rolling out of bed to record reaction podcasts to mad bits of news. Habib Diarra, somebody who I can't profess to know a great deal about, although I did see his goal against England the other week for Senegal, and it was a good goal. But he's a player who Leeds United and West Ham have apparently been chasing really close. I mean, Leeds fans, they were absolutely convinced he was signing for them. Some of the reaction from Leeds fans since this news has dropped is just like, catastrophic from their perspective, which gives me a little bit of hope. But again, goes back to something we talk about quite a lot. Sunderland do seem to operate from the shadows. We won't have just decided yesterday we were going to try and sign this lad. This will have been going on a while, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, although I think like with most Sunderland signings, we don't really know much about them until we see them. You can't help but be excited by when you see the big money, and just, it just makes it's getting the juices flowing, isn't it?
It is, and it's like Sunderland, isn't it? It's like, this is the way, and it's funny because we've both talked to, in the last few days, we've talked to kind of correspondents or people who kind of work in the media, and we're talking about all these players linked, and I think we've talked in the past about how Sunderland are never rumoured to be after someone. We're never kind of in the papers a week before. We don't seem to have a saga. It's like the rumour signing and scarf pick happens within a few hours when it actually does happen. The club just get it done quickly. They get it done quietly. And it's interesting because Diarra seems to have been a bit of a summer saga. I mean, you kind of, you look at all the reports. I mean, you just kind of need to scroll with his name, and you look at Football 365, linking him up, obviously the big one with Leeds, but Man United, apparently they were rivaling Man United for his signature. Then in other news, you've got him linked with Everton and Brighton, and then you've got him linked with Aston Villa. So, I mean, the kind of saga's gone on with Diarra, and it looks like, I mean, again, you're kind of reading between the lines. There's not much out yet. It's all kind of conjecture at the minute. But, you look at the bids, and Leeds are struggling apparently because of PSR, and that was getting up to about 22 million. And then you had Villa linked with 25 million. And it appears on the face of it that we've just blown everyone out the water with a 30 odd million bid, because it's a massive jump, because it's jumped from like 20 odd million up to 30 odd million. And, I mean, the obvious thing to say is that, we've got that much money in from Bellingham, and it's, if it happens, it's a cracking sign that this is just a straight swap, and we've just went out and we'll just use all that money to replace him.
Yeah, well, I'd read that Leeds had a 22 million bid rejected a couple of weeks ago for him, so it is a bit of a jump. Going off the figures reported by Fabrizio Romano, it's around about 30.5 million all in with add-ons.
Well, euros.
The actual figures he's reported.
So probably just over 30 by the sounds of it, if it's in euros.
So the figures he's reported are 31.5 million euros plus 4 million euros in add-ons. He's also said documents are being exchanged with Strasbourg. Medical's already booked. Here we go, 100% confirmed. So, I mean, it doesn't get much more legit than that, really, does it? Let's be honest. Fabrizio Romano being the number one transfer news reporter in the world. So I'm pretty confident that this one's going to go through, and we can, unless he's got some dodgy metal knee like Ronan Harazi or something. It is Sunderland after all, isn't it? Let's be honest. Something can go wrong, will go wrong, but this does look like it's all but done. And I mean, like I said before, I'm just really, really excited. I mean, you can't, obviously there's the obligatory YouTube clips and all the rest of it, and you watch that and you just look at this kid and you're like, bloody hell, he's an absolute powerhouse. And it's something which we've talked about in a couple of pods with people recently, about the need when stepping into the Premier League to have pure athleticism and power and strength in the core of your team. If you don't have that, you're going to struggle in the Premier League. And I mean, straight away looking at this lad, he's an absolute unit. Like, do you know what it is? Watching him and some of the goals he scores and the way he carries the ball reminds us a little bit of Decore at Everton, Sissoko, who used to play for the Mags, that kind of midfielder who can go box to box, really pull you forward with his power and pace and get you up the pitch and score goals. Which I think, to be honest, when you lose Jobe, that's what you need, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And it's just going back to Romano again. You might have had it the same, but the kind of correspondence and the people who do the reporting in the media, not necessarily the people who have got sources, but they look at people like Romano to almost break things, and then they report it. So like he's one of those people who they have immediately there. They keep looking at him. They keep refreshing him. He's the kind of guy who's got the sources. And like I talked to Dougie Critchley, if anyone goes back and listens to that podcast, he was like, well, his job as a reporter is to look out for the best sources, and he's up there. And in terms of what player, I mean, you can imagine that over the last, well, let's say at least 6 months, if not longer, that the club have known what Jobe Bellingham's plans are. And I think we've been fair with him, and I would assume that he's been fair with us. We knew what the plan was all along for Bellingham, and we've basically had a list and said, right, well, who fits that mould? Who would slot into that midfield and do exactly the same job, if not better? And we've got a list of them. And as you can imagine, almost as soon as that final whistle went and Jobe was in, transfer mode, that we were the same. And we've been working behind the scenes to see what we can do and bring someone in who basically does the same job and the same things, and that ball carrier. I mean, how many times last season when he was missing, I think, on the odd occasion, I think he had a couple of spells out, suspension and whatever. But we both said after games, we said, God, you can just tell when he's not in there. You can tell when we haven't got that ball carrier, because Dan Neil's a completely different midfielder. He'll sit. He's not dynamic. He doesn't drive you forward. Jobe Bellingham gets you forward 30, 40 yards after he wins the ball. Or he'll play that pass forward and get us going. And they seem to have gone out straight away and bought this player. And again, I'm just going back to some of the reports, and I'm going back to a report less than a week ago. And the headline said, French media say Habib Diarra move to Leeds is now imminent. So that was less than a week ago. Again, this one linked Diarra with Everton and Brighton. And And I've just realised that it's Liam Rosenior as well. At Strasbourg as well. So you wonder actually if he might be giving them some pointers moving to England. But yeah, and again, it's one of these out of nowhere. We haven't been linked with anyone, and it seems like Leeds have been absolutely desperate. Again, kind of reading between the lines, Leeds seem to have been absolutely desperate, but have been really worried about PSR and where they are. And I think it's funny because, look, for the last year or two, people have been saying, why don't we spend money? Why don't we spend 10 million on that striker? Why don't we spend 15 million on that striker? Get that striker in and we'll, and look, it made sense. Don't get me wrong. But when, there's usually a method behind the madness, or at least you'd think that there is. And when you look at Leeds and PSR, I know they've had a different journey because they've been in the Premier League, but by doing it the way we have, we've got so much leeway in terms of PSR and how much we can go out and spend. Because there's clubs coming up and saying, we've got all this money, but actually because of last time and how much we spent last time, what's our leeway to spend, 100 million? Can we spend 100 million? Like you looked at Ipswich, because Ipswich had bounced up twice, they had loads of space to the PSR wise to go, we'll go out and spend loads of money. Now, because we've boxed clever, we've got this, so we can go out and say, well, Bellingham's gone out. We can just there's 35 million, and we don't really necessarily need to keep any. We don't need to, let's say, try and sign a midfielder for 15 million. We can spend all of that Bellingham money on one player to replace him, and then we're fine because we know we're in exactly the same place, and we know we're in a strong place even if we spend all that money.
It's definitely about coming into the Premier League in a position of strength, and just, as we've said repeatedly, even when we were in League One, people were saying if you box clever, you can get up to the Premier League and give yourself so much room on your wage bill and in terms of transfer budgets that when you get there, you can do what it appears we're doing, which is going out and signing proper players, being ambitious, not doing the obvious thing, which some clubs have done recently and came up and just signed players from the Championship or over the hill Premier League players. We're going out and signing players that other clubs in the Premier League really want. And I mean, with Diarra specifically, this deal represents a lot because Sunderland have never spent this amount of money on a footballer. So whatever they see in him is like eventually at some point we can turn a massive profit on this player. And like we're basically looking at him and saying, we're going to pay 30 million for you, but in 2 or 3 years' time, the big boys are going to come knocking and they're going to want to pay big money for you. And we're backing ourselves to develop them. And at the same rate, Sunderland will develop with these players, hopefully. We'll sustain in the Premier League. We'll keep signing better players and the cogs keep turning. that to me is all that this is. It's Sunderland showing real ambition. And you can't ignore the fact as well, we've got the new incoming director of football. Somebody made this point yesterday about Gisolfi. Is it Florin Gisolfi? I will get his name right eventually. Somebody made this point about him yesterday. When you consider really, he's basically left Roma to come to Sunderland. He hasn't done that to work on a shoestring budget, has he? He's come in because he's been told, we want to sign all these players. You're going to have the money to do it. We need your influence. Let's get involved. He hasn't come in and, it's not like it's not like when we were in the Championship under Grayson and it was like, oh, well, you can have Aidan McGeady if you can get him on the cheap. It's a totally different kettle of fish. We are bringing people to the football club on the proviso that we will let them do their jobs. And that to me is a really ambitious sign. And a lot of clubs are going to be looking at us in the Premier League now and going, friggin' hell, Sunderland are serious. Sunderland are not taking this lightly. They're not just coming up here to make the numbers up, they're coming to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was Doogie, I think, who said that. He was talking about that. And it's funny, as he was talking, and again, just about the Bulker as well, when he was talking about him and Gisolfi, it was kind of hitting home because you just hear these names and obviously we don't know a huge amount about them until we start reading about them. But people in the know who have been following European football, they're turning around to us and saying, you kind of don't realise how much of a massive coup this is. And you're dealing with, and he turned around at one point and he was like, this is Roma. This is, we're a club who's been in League One for like 4 years, and then try to get back up at out the Championship and taking a few seasons. And he's like, now people from Roma are going, I want to go there, and I want to do my job there rather than at Roma. And even he said at Roma threw loads of money at him. Roma were kind of, look at all this money, but I think people see it as it was even reported. I can't remember where it was reported in one when we were linked with Bulga, but it was talking about the Sunderland project. It's like European reporters are kind of talking about us in terms of a project. And again, just looking at Diarra specifically, 21 years old, he's been playing in the top flight in France since I think he made his debut when he was 17, a few months before he was about to turn 18. I mean, already, he's almost starting to already sound like Bellingham, that we signed him when he was 17, and, that he's kind of come through and started playing games. And I'm fairly certain I've read that he's captain as well there. And the president, he's under contract till 2028, but the president said, I think in the agreement, they said that when he signed, I think it was last season he signed that from memory, but that he could leave this summer. I think that was almost like a gentleman's agreement. They said if an offer comes in, and it said if a decent offer comes in, which suggests there's probably a release clause, which might kind of explain the big jump from 20 odd million up to 30 odd million. I suspect we've hit some sort of release clause, or some sort of agreement that he's had with the club, if that's the case. But yeah, I mean, again, and it looks like this summer he's one of the kind of young European talent at lots of Premier League clubs. And we're in good company there if it's the likes of Villa, Brighton. I mean, obviously Leeds come up with us and they're desperate for him by the looks of it. But if Brighton and Villa are kind of trying to follow him and track him, and Everton are in the mix as well. I mean, like I say, we're fighting for these players, and we've just gone up. We're not kind of doing bargain basement signings. We're not going out and trying to do it on the cheap. We're bringing in 30 million and looking to spend 30 million.
Poor old Alan Nixon's getting none of the credit for this story. He was actually the first one to report it. And he gets a lot of stick, Alan Nixon, doesn't he? But he was the first one to drop the story on us from, Alan Nixon. Our old mate, reluctant Nico, he actually put this story on his Patreon yesterday afternoon, saying that Sunderland had taken the lead in the race to sign him. And this was on his Patreon account.
If he didn't charge for it, people would get more credit, wouldn't they?
That's a good point, isn't it? That's a good point. Sticking his work behind a Patreon window, then, it's his own bloody fault. But he did say, reporting the exclusive on his Patreon, Nixon says the bid has taken everyone by surprise and believes Sunderland could soon get the chance to speak to Diarra to agree personal terms and arrange a medical. While Leeds have already made 2 impressive signings this window, Sunderland winning the race with Diarra represents another bitter blow for Leeds and West Ham's transfer plans.
The West Ham are in there as well.
Yeah, another one, West Ham, who've apparently been in from. When you were reeling off all the names of the teams before, you were saying Aston Villa and Everton, and this that just stinks of an agent hawking his name around, trying to get him out there. I don't know how much his performance against England the other week made a difference, because scored against England a fortnight ago, and it was a decent goal. I mean, it was crap defending from England, but he still took it well. And to be honest, that was the first time I'd ever heard of him. I was like, I've never heard of this lad. And then you look into it, and he's got quite an exciting sort of trajectory as a young player. And you mentioned before, he working under Liam Rosenior at Strasbourg. Strasbourg have had a really, really good season in Ligue 1. And, when a team kind of comes out of nowhere and they're maybe a little bit unfancied and have a great season, all of a sudden they become ripe for the picking, don't they? I remember what would it have been, about 13, 14 years ago, maybe longer, when Montpellier won Ligue 1, and they had a really exciting young team. They had Olivier Giroud up front, Yang Gambiwa, I think, went to Newcastle. They had a raft of players right through that squad, and they won the league, and all of a sudden they were gone, because unfortunately for some clubs they just struggle to hang on to these players. And that may be the case with some of the signings we're making. I mean, not just this one, but the goalkeeper Burker, who we've been linked with, he's another one playing for a team who are going to be in the Champions League, but still not like, they're not a European elite side. And teams with Premier League money can just come along and pluck the best players off them. I mean, it's astounding, really. Like, I've seen someone on Twitter say this, but it wasn't 2 minutes since we were like really quibbling over like shite, like Josh Gowan and George Dobson. It wasn't that long ago, was it? And now we're spending 35 million euros on a bloody 21-year-old Senegal international. And you just think, what a jump we've made in such a short space of time. It's mad, isn't it?
Look, for anyone, and I'm sorry, but I don't know how people could, but over the last 4.5 years, and look, they have made mistakes. It's as simple as that in terms of the ownership, in terms of Carol Drift, in terms of Speakman, but progress can't be linear. It can only be linear for so long, and then as soon as you hit the bump, you've got to assess and say, well, no, what we're doing is good. We've got to tweak it. You've got to have faith in the plan if it's working most of the time. You can't chuck a plan out straight away. And 4.5 years ago, they came in with that squad with players like you've just described, and within 4.5 years, they've gone from trying to. I mean, I think in that window, the first signing was Ross Stewart, where people were going mad, and already, and I think he was the first big one, pretty much brought in like 10 million. And you go from there, you kick on. In 4.5 years, we're selling players for 30 odd million. We're signing players for 30 odd million in 4.5 years. That's ridiculous. When don't you laugh? And I said this, I can't remember who I said this to, but don't you laugh when you hear a new owner take over a club and he goes, I've got a 5-year plan. And you kind of go, yeah, good one. There's another one. I've got a 5-year plan to get us in the Premier League. Yeah, good one. And you almost hear it so many times. And these have done it in 4.5 years. And people are going, and people have whinged. Some people have wanted them out. I mean, it blows my mind when you see the progress they've made and that some of the reaction to it. It just absolutely the mind boggles. But I was looking around just in terms of, because I was talking about their president, and he did an interview just a couple of weeks ago, actually. The president, something Keller, I can't remember the guy's first name, but I'll dig it up. Something Keller, the president of Strasbourg. Oh, and I was going to say, mate, by the way, you've had one trip to Marseille, and it's all Strasbourg and Ligue 1 and all this sort of stuff.
I've developed an accent, you're right.
All right. One work trip to Marseille, and look at you, you're already our European correspondent. But I saw an interview with Keller, and he said, and this was just a couple of weeks ago, he said, there's one player who should leave based on a promise I made to him 2 years ago, and that's our captain, Habib Diarra. When he extended his contract, we told him he was extending it, but that he wouldn't leave until June 2025. So if we get an attractive offer for him and for us, he could leave. So look, it's there. I mean, again, a comment like that from a president is going to spark a lot of interest, especially in a 21-year-old captain who's been playing in the top flight somewhere in Europe for I think this is he's just completed these 4. I think he played a handful of seasons 4 years ago, but for 3 full seasons he's played quite a lot of games. And again, if you go back to Dougie Critchley, really interesting stuff that you've just touched on in terms of the disparity in European leagues. And I think this is a perfect example. You've got a captain of one of the sides who they almost know that they almost stuff like this. It sounds like a championship club, almost where they're saying, we know one of the big boys in Europe is going to come in and take our best talent, take our captain, basically, and they make a promise to them that they can. And Dougie Critchley was talking about that, especially COVID, which decimated your Spanish leagues and your German leagues and your French leagues, that in terms of finances. He said the gap was already there, but he said that the gap now is so ridiculous between the Premier League and the rest of Europe that it's just showed that we've spent so long outside the top flight, we've bounced up, and now we're spending 30 odd million, and we're buying captains from top flight in France, and it just shows the spending power. we've only been in we've been in the Premier League a month now officially, and already we've got that spending power over the likes of Strasbourg and these clubs who are trying to sell their best talent. So, I mean, it really is absolutely ridiculous that we've already just jumped into that market. And, you know, it's funny when I remember the first time we're in the Premier League and Peter Reid took us up and we were looking at kind of, you know, we were buying, broke our £1 million transfer record for the first time with Alex Rea. But, you know, you're talking Alex Rea, Quinn, Courton, and it was the same summer as Shearer going to the Mags for 15 million. There was that massive kind of gap. But now you're talking about going up into the Premier League, spending 30 odd million. And again, just going back to people we've talked to, Gav, Tom White called this, didn't he? He said he fully expected us to break our transfer record again.
He did indeed, and I'm sure we'll probably do it again. The rate things are going at, you wouldn't bet against it, would you? That we're likely to do this a couple more times at least. I mean, it is really exciting time to be a Sunderland fan. I mean, the end of last season was amazing, but even then, when we were like sitting back after a week or so and saying like, well, right now, what the fuck do we do? Like, where do we go from here? How are we going to tackle the summer, like, to make sure like Sunderland are competitive? I don't think I saw this coming at all. Like, we've been more ambitious than I thought we were going to be in terms of the appointment of the director of football, the level of players we seem to be attracting. You know, players who are fancied right across Europe by big clubs. Sunderland are the ones going to the front and saying, "We'll have you." You know, I wasn't expecting that, if I'm honest. I was expecting us to be a little bit more cute, and we might be with some of our business, and I would expect we will be. You know, they're not all going to be £30 million level signings, but it's still really exciting, isn't it? And that's what you want. I can remember when we came up under Roy Keane that summer, nothing like this because it's a different time and all that.
Yeah, it is.
But I can remember that summer being like dead excited about this, just Sunderland going out and spending money because we'd never done it for years, really. Like not at the top level, anyways. Under Murray and stuff, we went out, and I know a lot of these signings didn't work out, but we went and took Southampton's best player. We went and took Cardiff's best player. We went around the Championship picking off the best players all over the place. We signed Craig Gordon, who at the time was tipped to go to a massive club, and then he comes to Sunderland, and you were just really excited by the level of spending. And then on from that, the season after, going out and buying Malbranc and players like that, and Djibril Cissé coming to the club, and then when Bruce came in, spending big money on the likes of Darren Bent and stuff. Like those were exciting summers to be Sunderland fans, and we followed them up by having, decent seasons by that standard. Even under Keane, staying up was an achievement, and staying up this year would be an achievement. But this is another level on top of that. I've never been as maybe not excited, but as intrigued by a summer of business than this. Because, when you told the Sunderland was signing Djibril Cissé, I knew who he was. We told the Sunderland was signing Steve Malbranc, I knew who he was. These players, I don't know who they are, but that doesn't give me concern because I know that the people in charge do know who they are and that they've done their homework and that we've got proper people in charge now who do this and they do it the right way. This isn't Roberto De Fanti going through his contact list and signing players off all his mates and from his own agency. This is another level to anything we've seen at Sunderland, and it really does bode well for the rest of the summer. I think if this is a sign of anything, it should be that our fans really do need to strap in and look forward to what's to come.
Well, it's different, isn't it? Like you said, that time we could only go off the last time we were promoted to the top flight, which is, as you said, it was a different time, and I think we mentioned that to Tom White, didn't we? We said that this is just a different world we're entering now. But back then, you're right. We were going to the Championship and saying, right, well, who were the best players there? We'll have all of them and kind of hope we can step up. And it's funny as well. You look at people go on about Ipswich spending 100 million, but they seem to be taking the Championship's best players again. They seem to be doing that plan, and they spend 100 million. And a lot of people said they spent 100 million for building in the Championship. So they spent all of that money in preparation for coming back down and going back up again and building like that. we seem to have, if these come off, I mean, look, again, I don't want to talk too much like it's come off, because at the time of recording it hasn't. It's just broken and all that sort of stuff. But the Bulga transfer, people are almost looking at it wide-eyed, going, I can't, if Sunderland get this, it'll be incredible. And you're talking about people who are, you're talking about Dougie Critchley, who is a Sunderland fan, but also he knows what's going on in Europe. And he was like, I actually can't believe that we're linked with some of these players. He was surprised with the Enzo affair. Like when that broke, he thought, I don't actually quite believe this is happening, in terms of, us being out of the loop and him now reporting on these players signing for us. So we've almost kind of bypassed that step where we've jumped a step that maybe Ipswich tried to do, and we've went, no, we're gonna get these players that are all, that we think are already level. And I think he's, for a 21-year-old captain of a top flight club, who's, by the way, they've just qualified for the Europa Conference League, so they're playing in Europe next season. And if we do sign him, he's leaving a club who are playing in Europe to sign for us, that he's captain of, that he's played over 100 games for in the top flight. That is getting him, international caps for Senegal. And the other aspect to it, again, looking at the players we've got, if they look at these transfers, and as you said, as fans, we're thinking we mean business. The players we've got are thinking that. They go, like, we were touching on Anthony Patterson with the Bulka rumours, and he must be looking at that going, bloody hell. And if he knows other keepers and around Europe, some of the best goalkeepers around Europe.
By the way, you've just reminded me that I called him Burka. I've just realised I called him Burka and not Bulka, but there we go. I'll get there eventually.
Well, it's morning and you're sitting there in your string vest eating a croissant, so you're a contradiction already, man. But yeah, I mean, if those players must be thinking, Christ, we mean business. Like, we're not just bringing a player who I played against in the Championship, and I'm not going to battle against him because I think I'm better than him. They're bringing in players who they must be looking at going, Christ, actually, he's a different level, and I've got to either step it up or I'm going to lose my place here. And again, when you look at profiles, and we touched on this at the beginning, but again, we talked with someone about if we lost both central midfielders in the way we play, that we would have to come up with a new partnership and they would have to get used to each other. And okay, the same is going to be true. If you lose one and you bring one in, and let's say he's playing alongside Dan Neil, which we hope he is, and that contract situation is sorted. But if he's, as we think and as he looks like he's the same profile as Bellingham, it's almost like Dan Neil it's going to be so much easier to go, right, well, actually I'm playing alongside almost the same player who's, all right, he's going to have different aspects and different attributes, but on the whole, he wins the ball, drives forward and gives it simple. That's going to make that transition easier. That Dan Neil's going to go, actually, it's almost, it's Jobe Bellingham with a few of these things, or I've got to get used to this, that Jobe Bellingham doesn't do. But it's almost saying, right, we've got a list of players who have got the right attributes to slot straight in. And you can see that across the pitch, that we've got, and we're going down the route of saying, let's say as a central midfielder, as one of the central midfielders, we want these attributes. For the other central midfielder, we want these attributes. For a fullback, we want these attributes. So they'll have a list of players with that, and they'll just be ready to, like I said, in the terms of Bellingham, we lose one, we bring one straight in.
Well, yeah, very exciting news, and we'll get more expert insight from people who actually know this lad and have seen him play, I'm sure, over the coming days once it actually gets confirmed.
I saw your message, by the way. We'll just have to make do with us today, by the way. Bloody hell. You know what I mean?
Well, people are demanding. Do you know what's mad, Chris? I woke up, totally missed the story because it broke at 1:15 in the morning. Logged on to post all the usual stuff for the actual podcast for today, which was, of course, the one with Dougie Critchley. And we had inboxes on Twitter, inboxes on Facebook, inboxes on Instagram, inboxes on Ready to Go, messages on Twitter, people being like, "Oh, lads, get up, do a podcast, react to it." I think we've really we've made a rod for our own backs, mate.
I bet you they thought the Dougie Critchley one was recorded during the night to report on it.
Well, it might as well have been. We could just pretend. But no, we've got loads on the feeds at the minute. I mean, you would just mention it. Yeah, the pod with Dougie, which went out today, which is Saturday. Obviously, this one's a reaction pod, so we aren't even daily now. We're twice daily in some cases because this is the thing, isn't it? There's that much going on. You've got to react to it instantly. Also on Friday, I did an interview with Alex Parker from The Athletic.
As quick as Tony Daly.
Yeah. I did an interview with The Athletics. Yeah, I Kelvin. I did an interview with The Athletic's Alex Parker, and that was a really, really interesting chat because he came loaded with data about Marseille and Bulka, and he's The Athletic's Ligue 1, as do you like my pronunciation there, Chris? Ligue 1 correspondent. And that one was a really, really interesting chat. People need to go back and listen to that, and he'll tell you all about what we can expect from him if that signing comes off, which it looks like it's all but done. We also chucked out an interview with Neil Wainwright, which Chris did a couple of years ago, which is an interesting listen about the good old days under Peter Reid during his spell there. He was there from 98 to 2001, I think. We also did a news roundup, me, Chris and Johnny, me with a slightly less clear voice after getting back off my holidays.
Raspy voice.
But you can catch up on that. We've also got a top 10 from earlier in the week, which was the top 10 goalkeepers of the last 35 years at Sunderland. An interview with Lee Howie this week's on this week, which was a delve into the Sunderland history books, looking at Jimmy McNabb, Charlie Buchan and Ian Atkins. An interview that we did with Simon Ramsden, which it was brilliant, absolutely outstanding, like the biggest Sunderland fan ever, who got to live the dream really and just follow the lads from the bench, which he still admits to this day was just unbelievable. So there's absolutely loads to catch up on. You can scroll right back through the feeds. We've got interviews coming out of our ears. I mean, if you're bored, there's plenty to stick on and listen to, and there'll be more coming up over the coming days. We've got on this week coming on Monday. I think we've got another interview coming on Sunday, which will be with Paul Thirlwell, who obviously used to play for Sunderland under Peter Reid. So loads. And plus, if there's any breaking news and we're available, we'll jump on, we'll chat about it. We'll try our best to give you some insight on what's going on and all the rest of it. So plenty to catch up on. If you enjoy these podcasts, make sure you subscribe, like, drop us a comment on Spotify if you can. Those are always good to read. And tell your mates, tell them all about Howie the podcast, because we are flying at the minute. Anyways, that's enough of the plugs. Cheers, mate. Saturday.
That's it. It was worth it just for hearing you say Marcin Berger and Charlie Buchan.
Probably. Look, it's early. I haven't had a coffee yet. I've only had half a glass of water, and my head's fried. So I'm going to take that one on the chin. But yeah, Berger's me. I start calling him Berger. I'll start getting the knackers from Hendon after us and stuff, won't I? We're not signing Berger. No Bergers in Sunderland. Anyways, thanks, mate. Cheers, listeners. We'll be back with another pod probably in an hour when Sunderland signs someone else. And we'll catch you later.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.